For your information, any AI-generated images used in this slideshow are for educational purposes only. And now on to the show. When AI creates our art, bad things happen. Ever since the idea of AI going rogue became popular in the 20th century, everyone wondered when it would be due. But no one ever knew it would affect the livelihoods of artists. This kind of AI, called generative AI, steals from artists to create its own work. And despite how questionable these programs are, demand for them is spreading like wildfire. It is already a $45 billion industry globally, and about 60% of all people worldwide use it in some way, according to statistics from Exploding Topics. AI is considered generative AI steals from artists by sampling from billions of images online under the name of a database. But it's rarely a database, but just the entire internet. It is used to create images from bits and pieces sampled from them and has a limited amount of variation based on the prompt. And it can be quite easy to notice where some of these samples came from. And yet, AI doesn't think on its own. It's just merely a program being fed all this information to vomit out a product. It doesn't make any decisions and doesn't think creatively or think at all, which is what many artists affected by these programs like Julia Bosenhart say. Errors often get through, and you can see some pretty gnarly ones like hideously disfigured hands or warped text. And in the worst case scenarios, the program can struggle creating images from complex prompts, like this one. Part of it has to do with something called model collapse, which is when the AI runs out of sources to pull from, so it will just cannibalize its own to the point it becomes unrecognizable, which is also known as Habsburg collapse, a term coined by computer scientist Jathan Sadowski, named after a prominent 17th century Western European family known for their inbreeding. And it's very fitting when you think about it. Model collapse can happen in any scenario where AI is used. Let's say extending an image, like as a clip. The results can be very messed up because of a paucity of sources to sample from. But regardless of that, these programs provide an opportunity for many users to create art, which is already flooding the submissions queues for various competitions. Most famously, the Theatre d'Opera Spatial, a first prize winner from the 2022 Colorado State Fair. Alexander Liu writes about more examples of these submissions, but based on how colorful they look and how they're the prettiest among the bunch, it's no wonder why generative AI is so popular right now. And yet, the errors can still show through despite all the potential. And low quality children's books made with AI are flooding market sites like Amazon. And that is a screenshot of an image of one of these AI book generators from Robert Evans's blog, which it looks like a Mad Lib, where you can just enter a couple of variables and voila, you get a book in a few minutes, no matter how crappy looking it is. And regardless of all these mistakes, many people are flocking to them because it's so convenient. And that leads us to the conclusion. Generative AI is Generative AI is now encroaching into every part of our lives, particularly on the internet because they're so convenient. Why bother spending years learning how to write a book or draw when you can just create one in a few minutes yourself? And it really shows based on how these books and images are rarely edited to make them look nice and how they're just all churned out. It's more so that the big tech companies behind these programs are taking advantage of all the artists because they're just providing them with freebies to create their own low quality products from. And that's the problem. As a writer, I feel greatly affected by this because fewer people now want to learn how to write stories or draw anymore. So, if you're browsing online doing research on how to write a book and see a link to one of those generative AI programs, think about this. Is it really worth it? Do you really want to steal from actual artists? And how would you feel if your art got stolen? If I were you, take the hard road and actually learn the skills necessary for writing, because that is the best way for any of us to follow our dreams. And there are my sources. And that's all, folks.